Welcome back to the Let's Talk Social Innovation Pod, everybody. I hope you've had an amazing start to your week. And if not, we can kickstart right here. I'm your host, Ian Kahende. And first and foremost, while I say this episode will be dropping on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Happy MLK Day when this drops. I know, real one, MLK, you know. Hope everybody had an amazing winter break and a great start to 2024. Anyways, ahead of us, I got my bestie sis freshies, Ashawnti Buckner.
Yes. Okay.
Tell them what's up.
Hi, guys. I'm Ashawnti.
Tell us more about yourself.
Okay, so I'm a junior health services major here at the University of Pittsburgh with a minor in Africana Studies and a certificate in communication.
I see why you wanted the African soap.
My academic aspirations are very public health focused. Like we talked a little bit previously about civic engagement and just community-based programming. So I'm interested in anything that can improve community.
So in this pod, we're going to get into Ashanti's backstory. And of course, we're going to get into her current work in the anti-aging space.
No, we want to age.
When I said anti-aging, I meant like anti-aging.
Okay, yeah.
Ageism,
we want to talk about anti-ageism, and then we want to talk about embracing aging, because what's the alternative? You don't want the alternative. So we'll talk about that.
But anyways, let's get into your backstory and what's gotten you to where you're at right now.
Okay. I feel like my backstory isn't fully fleshed out like other people's. I'm from a Maryland Peninsula. I'm from the eastern shore of Maryland, so closer to the Ocean City side. Ocean City is like what's most people are like central to when they think about it. I'm from a family with an extensive history of healthcare workers, devoted mothers, just really good people, a lot of watermen, because we're from like a peninsula. So it's a very beachy area. And I don't know what much other than that. My backstory: I'm from a single parent household. I'm the youngest of 4 kids.
Oh, wow.
I have 2 sisters and a brother who are all literally so incredible. My sisters are both social workers. One a master's student, one's a PhD candidate. And I have a brother who's in his early 20s and he has autism. So that's also been an interesting journey to navigate. And then there's me, the youngest, going into public health. First one in my family to go far away for college.
Where were your siblings put at?
They all went local. We have a local HBCU, and then we have another state school that's local. So they both did the exact same program and went through it. And then now my sister's a PhD candidate. She goes online. And so, yeah.
So what did your mother do? What was her job?
Yeah, my mom has always worked in the healthcare field. She's always had her CNA for extra work. She's worked in different places. She was an office tech for a long time under a family physician, like my family physician's office. She was an emergency room technician. She always has worked in the hospital. And my siblings and I, all of our initial focuses were going to be working in the hospital. Both my sisters wanted to be nurses initially, and then I wanted to be some sort of clinician. But as I've got older and got into my studies, I realized just because I excel in science doesn't necessarily mean I have to be a clinician. My goal is always to connect people with the healthcare resources that they are denied. And I see that in my rural community where I'm from. And I thought it was going to be so different when I came to Pittsburgh. You have UPMC, one of the best, well interconnected healthcare systems, yet you literally see communities that are denied that healthcare. And that's why we see like a high maternal mortality rate in Pittsburgh. And we see most of the Black population living underneath the poverty line, no firm Black middle class. So I am much more interested in health delivery than being like a clinician. Like, how can we get the average person their basic right or access to healthcare?
So my question to you is, other than your mother working in the healthcare space, what got you set on this path?
Oh, like public health is, I really love the preventative nature of public health. I've been writing my grad essay lately, and I've thought to myself of how many people in my community I've seen succumb to diseases that are like preventable pretty early. Like my own father died from a fentanyl overdose in his
Mm,
early 40s, and I would say he was very much a product of his environment, and there were not really healthcare resources that worked with him. The best solution we could think of as a society was like constantly throwing him in jail rather than treating his
hmm. It's like
illness.
punishment instead of
Yeah.
actual
And
rehabilitation.
then we don't necessarily look at uh chemical dependency as a mental disease. I feel like we're moving in a better space because of the opioid epidemic. Some people would argue because more Caucasian people are dying than ever, so we're taking it more serious. But
Hmm.
my father, unfortunately, is a victim and a statistic from, like, in the opioid epidemic that has only gotten worse since COVID. So I really wanted to go into chemical dependency, or the intersection between incarceration and chemical dependency, or incarceration race. And all of the studies are all like from a public health approach, like all
Mm.
the studies that I was interested in. So public health was definitely, applying to school, my top choice. So
So when did STEM really become a part of your life?
Science has just always been my favorite. I've always been a school type of girl. I would say my freshman year, I had the best teacher ever. I love any platform I can get to talk about her, I will. Her name is Tina Taylor. She's been teaching in my county literally since, I believe, like 1978. So for over 40 years,
1978.
she is so. But we don't shame for age.
Oh
This is
no.
about embracing age. I love that. But no, she's literally such a fundamental person in so many people's stories, and I ended up taking a biomedical engineering course with
Mm.
her, which lasted like 4 years.
Okay, big brain.
So I really enjoyed it. I feel like that's where I'm not really a STEM girl because I cannot do math, but I'm a science person. So uh,
Science is part of STEM. That's the whole S.
yeah, yeah. So I appreciate STEM from the science aspect, but I would say it made me not only have interest in just like the science and research part, but just the social context of science. I feel like that's something that a lot of people miss when they're in high school, and then you really can embrace it when you go to college. So I am very much interested in the social context of science. So
So moving from high school to college,
yeah.
where are we at right now? What we doing?
Oh, high school, I feel like I'm the same. I was just always very over involved. I like to stay busy.
Mm.
Right now, I would say one of my biggest accomplishments is I'm a business manager for student government for College of General Studies. Pitt is broken up into many schools, but College of General Studies is one of its smallest. It houses like pre-professional students, untraditional students as far as age. So an untraditional or older student is classified as someone who's 23 years or older. So we have a lot of those students within the school, and like non-degree program holders who are like going to get classes for their positions at like UPMC or things like that. So I really love serving such a diverse population. So I work with the College of General Studies as the business manager, and also work with freshman students through the provost office as a mentor. And I work in the Pittsburgh community outside of University of Pittsburgh with the Age Coalition that we're going to get into later. So I just like helping others. I feel like that shines through in all the work that I do. So in high school, I was very much the same. I was literally in every club. I was like a 2-season athlete, and I also worked a lot. I like to work. So I also work in a community pharmacy, which is another way that I can impact people like on a healthcare level, and working with improving health literacy within the community and giving immunizations. And like that's given me like a new appreciation from like the clinical side of healthcare,
Mm.
I would say. So
What sports we talking?
oh gosh, I was never good at any of my sports, but I played field hockey for a little bit.
Okay.
Didn't really love it, but my favorite sport was tennis. I That was my favorite sport I ever played. And I was in, like, you were also in the marching band. So
Mm-hmm.
I did band for
Stand up.
many, many years, sousaphone, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I played clarinet for a long time. So that was my sport. I was tired after band camp. So
Always. It's like
like
8
we
to
were
12
denied water.
hours.
So
Just
like, yeah, so I would say that was probably my biggest, but
so let's get into more of the age coalition that you're currently working with. How did
Yeah.
we get that opportunity?
So this summer I had the opportunity to be a part of the Pitt Public Health Undergraduate Scholars Program. It's the first time Pitt has ever hosted it. There's a national program called the CDC John R. Lewis program, and our friend Mary also was a part of it. So it was really, really nice. It takes different college students, places them in Uh, community internship. So I personally worked for a nonprofit. Some people were here at Pitt. There was just a lot of different options, and it's done in a lot of different colleges: Columbia, UCLA, Kennedy Krieger, University of Michigan. This was Pitt's first year, so it was really nice.
Mhm.
So I got placed at a nonprofit in Squirrel Hill called the Jewish Community Center, which is really it's really huge. There's a great Jewish population within Squirrel Hill, but it also doesn't only serve the Jewish population. It's for anybody in the community. That's
Mhm.
just how it's ran, or that's just how
It's
it's labeled as
like
a nonprofit.
labeled named, yeah.
So I worked in their aging center, which is called Age Well Pittsburgh. It's for any member of the community of Allegheny County who's 6 year older, and they have programming for them like leisure based, athletic health based, technology based. They serve lunch to them every day. It is a kosher lunch, which is I think a lot of people appreciate because it has to be served hot.
Mhm.
So I worked with them all summer, and I really just fell in love with the aging space. Like it's not really talked about.
Not at all.
So I worked with them all summer. I conducted research. My research project was called Why or Let's Have Lunch, Why Community Based or Why Congregate Meal Programming is Great for Older Adults. So I talked about combating isolation and loneliness, which are two different things. Isolation is a state. It's like somewhere that's something that you're in, and loneliness is a feeling, but a lot of
Mhm.
people get them confused. And then it also talked about addressing food insecurity within the population of older adults. So I started there, had the best time, and then my preceptor, Maddie Barnes, was like, "Hey, Age Friendly, which is a network that we have of different programs around the city of Pittsburgh, is starting a coalition of college students, undergraduate and graduate students. They want to start a board of you guys. They want to talk about combating ageism around the city of Pittsburgh and what you can do and your notions about ageism, just like how the average college student feels about aging."
Mhm.
So that's how I got into the work. I'm still currently in it, and they want us to do influencing opportunities to just put it on a platform and talk about ageism. So this is my first one.
Okay.
So yeah.
So working with the elderly in Squirrel Hill.
Okay. We're gonna start. We gotta start with a few things. We
Okay.
don't use elderly.
What should I be
We use
saying?
older adult or senior.
Okay.
Okay. That's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm
No,
learning.
yeah. So we use older adult or senior.
All right.
Mhm.
So working with seniors in Squirrel Hill. Obviously, these people have seen much more life than we have
So
as
good.
younger people. What are some things that they taught you?
They taught me, for one, just to appreciate a good story and appreciate lived experience. I literally met Holocaust survivors. I have met past professors, engineers, and I think I've really learned that a lot of your life is about your identity is about going into your career, flourishing in your career, but what is it after that? How do you maintain or retain purpose for your
Mhm.
life after? And diving in and having that community is so important. So when I walked in there, it was really like walking into a high school cafeteria. People are gossiping, people are eating, they're up, they're energetic, they're laughing. If it's nice outside, they want to go outside. There's a preschool next door. They love seeing the younger kids. It was an environment where everything was flourishing.
Mhm.
So, and the average adult in there, I feel like I did a survey myself. I think in my survey, the average adult was 70 to 75. So it all honestly makes you rethink about your preconceptions of what age is or what is quote unquote old.
Mhm.
And so I really enjoyed it. They taught me a lot, and I garnered a few great relationships with people who attended the lunch program there, because that's where I interacted on most days I went to the lunch program. So
So what does the future of your work in the space of ageism look like?
I'm applying for graduate school right now, either to study health policy or in management or to go in behavioral community health sciences. I've Pittsburgh or Allegheny County is the second oldest county in the country.
Really?
Like, and people don't know that. And I mean, I learned that. So this is the best like space to literally study aging. So I ultimately, I definitely want to be a professor. I've always wanted to teach, be in school. I would love to be a tenured professor at a nice university to teach about like health education or gerontology, of course. But as of right now, I just want to do what I can and bring in just some innovative ideas to the aging space. I kind of liked Pitt has something called like the Healthy Home Labs, which is
Mhm.
like an interdisciplinary approach for someone who's aging in place, someone who, as you go older, you don't want to move from your home, but things have to change for you to have like a more comfortable lived experience. So I really appreciated how they were working with engineers, they were working with occupational therapists, they're working with public health students. I like something like bringing that together and making someone age comfortably.
Mm.
I really appreciate that. So wherever that would make sense for me in the hospital setting, in a nonprofit setting, in a research setting, I do like to engage in research. So
I always wondered what the Healthy Home Lab was because, like,
yeah,
I lived in Bouquet. It was
yeah.
literally right next to
I lived
me.
in Bouquet this summer with pups, and then I was like, I passed this every day, and I did not know what it was. But they had some really innovative ideas as far as aging, so or aging in place. So I really appreciated that.
We may have to reach out to them and get somebody from there on
Yeah,
here.
you should. You should. Like, you really should. There's some people who can describe their work a lot better than I can because I worked in a senior center for most of the time.
Mhm.
But like, and main guy who gave us a tour, he was an engineer like you, so you guys could.
Well,
Yeah,
interdisciplinary.
y'all can engage in that jargon. I don't know, but yeah.
Anyways, before we get to our artist spotlight intermission, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout your life so far that you want to pass on to everybody watching, listening?
Yes, that is a big deal. I would say my biggest one is just empathy. I try to live my life as an empathetic person. I think for like, if we want to like go back to my dad, there was a lot of frustration from him not being there, but
Mhm.
that's because I didn't really understand the toll that mental health or addiction can have on a person. I really thought it was like a selfish thing. And as I got older, I learned how to empathize and truly forgive him, but I didn't really forgive him in time before he passed away. So
Mhm.
that's something that I definitely had to process on my own. So that's mostly that everybody is just trying their best, and you can tell if someone isn't. So honestly, I'm a person who's embedded in my faith. I think as a faithful person, you have to give grace. So I would say grace and empathy are just like my guiding principles.
It's like it's a crazy thing to think about when the amount of people that you see just like walking down the street driving every single day.
Yeah.
Every single person is going through their own thing.
Sonder.
And it's
Everybody
like
has their own story. Sonder.
someone cuts me off in traffic and I don't know that they have to rush to go somewhere. It's like they're having a terrible day. So
Yeah.
like it's just
Give people grace.
Yeah.
And it's okay to move on. And yeah, I just like to chill. That's what I like to be. Chill at all times.
we love to see it.
Yep.
We're gonna get into this week's artist spotlight. We'll be listening to Snake Bite by Sunny Days. I hope you guys enjoy. Hope y'all enjoyed that snippet from Snakebite by Sunny Days. You'll find all the artist information in the description. Spotify, Instagram, YouTube, all that jazz is going to be in the description below. Now, getting into the second half of this week's episode, Ashawnti will be touching on her research and other things in the field of ageism. So
Yeah.
I leave the floor open to you.
Yes. So, like I said, my previous research was in aging and then kind of the intersection between aging and mental health, which is really important to me. But now I'm starting to do work with ageism. So, it's just important to define ageism before you start talking about it. So, it's how we think, feel, and act towards others and ourselves based on age. So, I want to start with a question for you.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever felt like some type of conflict with your age? Like I should be further. Other people are doing this at this age. Like, have you ever felt that type
I
of
think
way?
it's really easy to, compare yourself to others and where they're at, like in terms of work or school or all those things, and feel
Yeah.
inadequate. So yeah, I've definitely been there.
Okay. And then how would you have defined ageism
Age,
for this?
I not even in my vocabulary.
You wouldn't have. A lot
Not
of
at
people,
all.
I would say, and honestly, me would have been like, ageism is feeling disdain for someone who's like, let's just say older than 60 or 65. And you say these ageist comments, but I read something, it was like, ageism's like one of the only like discriminatory practices that we can use openly, like, and just be
It
okay
is
with it.
regular.
Like, I am such a Real Housewives fan. I love so many of the franchises, but the most common insult is "you old lady," or "look at your hands, look at your face, look at your neck." Like, you're just mad because you're this, you're that, and it's really hard for them. It's really hard for us now in like the time of social media to embrace aging. Like, aging is, like I said, is such a positive thing. And I don't think my sentiment will change as I get older. I've met so many people who work in this space who just appreciate their age for what it is, because like we said, like, what is the alternative for aging? So
You bringing up Real Housewives, that
yeah.
does like bring up the thought in my mind of how the aging experience is so different with men versus women, and
Oh,
how age and wrinkles and natural things are insults for
the
women, but they're never brought up for
intersection
men.
of gender and age, and of gender and pretty much anything, is so interesting. I feel as though that men are more appreciated for like what they get with age. Even if you think of like a old, quote unquote, old lady with gray hair, or if with a man with all gray hair, if he looks, handsome, they're, oh, that's a silver fox. That's that. So of course there's biases both that go both ways. But yeah, our experiences, even right now, even with all the research I do in aging, will be totally different. So
I mean, like, even then, like, an old man's a sugar daddy while an old lady's just raggedy,
yeah, it's like it's completely unfair. Women, I don't know. Like, as we get older, we literally go through such like traumatic things, like the thought of giving birth and having kids, and that those things should be celebrated. But it's kind of like society moves past us. They like kind of want to leave us behind. We already have all the experience. I hear a lot of that like narrative in dating and things like that. So I mean, it's completely unfortunate, but it's just reality. So ageism can be self-directed. Like, that's a little bit what we're talking about. I always feel like I'm not doing enough. Even the more I do, I'm like, well, someone else is doing this, someone else is doing this. And then I have to remind myself that 21 is an acceptable age to just be just trying things out. It's okay. It can be interpersonal also in the relationship that you have with someone else. Like, it's so easy to have a joke between someone's age. Like, if I say to my mom, like, or if I say to like my grandfather, like, "Hey, old man," like things like that. But it's so natural, and we just kind of want to think about why it's so
So
natural.
ingrained,
Yeah, it is. And then it can be institutional, which is really, that's obviously a problem when you're like facing discrimination on your job or in professional settings. based upon your age because the preconceived notions we have about aging. So, like, I have like our anecdote I'll ask you about later
Hmm.
about that. So, like I said before, Allegheny County, so the county where Pittsburgh is located, 19.7% of the residents are over the age of 65, which is the national average is 16.8%, like within the country. But by I believe it's by 2030, 1 in 5 people will be over the age of 65.
Wow.
That's a lot. And the community of older adults are really complex. We invest most of our healthcare into that community, and our healthcare, our money and our resources. And we kind of want to help people, or in my research, I really want to help people age gracefully, age well. So, um, I have some other things based on ageism. So I want to give you some questions from this age-friendly inventory. It was developed by Kate DeMeridos and Susan Kunkel. I hope I said both of those right. It's a comprehensive scale to measure and identify different occurrences and types of ageism. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and it's like the scale that's like disagree, somewhat disagree,
Okay.
neither. You know what I
Like my
mean?
OMAT.
Yeah, like a good a good OMAT. So this is the 5 scale. So we'll just talk about them. It's just important to know that this test is not about labeling someone as ageist,
Hmm.
like, or saying you have this ageist tendency, this means this about you. It's literally just a introspective way of how we think about aging. So I think
Hmm.
these questions are really
I'm
interesting.
ready.
So the first one is, we talked about this a little bit. I feel comfortable making a joke about someone's age with them.
I agree.
You
Yeah.
feel comfortable, and I think
Yeah.
we've talked about that. It's just so ingrained into us, it's not offensive. Maybe as we grow older it'll be offensive, but I feel like it's something that we can definitely check about ourselves. Like, why is that something that's demeaning? Why is that
Hmm.
something that I go for?
Age isn't something we can control.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's literally not. Okay, another question. I think that employers should focus their training efforts on their younger staff.
I agree.
You agree with
I
that? Can you explain?
like I feel as though the more resources that we pour into younger staff, because these are the people who are going to populate the workforce for the next 40 plus years
Mm-hmm.
versus the older staff where, retirement age typically 65 to 70. So, they're I'm saying like you're getting less bang for your buck
Okay.
when you're, educating them.
Yeah, let's talk about retirement. Retirement age only exists for a very small amount of the population.
Hmm.
Retiring is not necessarily in everyone's cards. Not because they don't want to retire, but because
This is the way the
they can't
system is set
afford
up.
to
Yeah.
retire.
Hmm.
So a lot of our older adults are going back into the workforce. There also may have been like implications from like the loneliness or isolation that they experienced during COVID and like trying to find a community. Maybe a lot of them are having a hard time finding their identity outside of their careers for a long time, so they're going into the workforce and they are an active part of it. And I don't think age necessarily means longevity, because maybe in my head, if you train to say a younger person, they can transfer, they can go to any company, they don't necessarily owe you loyalty, they can take their skill set elsewhere.
Hmm.
So I think it just depends on the individual rather than the age of the individual. I don't know.
I'm not going to say that, because you're older and you don't know what you're doing that we shouldn't teach you. Or I'm not trying to imply that someone's younger has a better idea and that they
Yeah,
don't need as much
I think they're
resources.
on the equal level playing field, but I feel like you should invest. I feel as though you should invest equal time into anybody, because maybe someone who's been in the workforce, they see the opportunity that's ahead of them. They understand how it's going to work out. They just appreciate it. They've been in workforce for years. And then when you're trying to feel the landscape out when you're younger, you move from one opportunity to the next. That's how you grow.
Hmm.
So I feel like that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be at the company for longer just because they're younger.
You're right.
Yeah, but that's something that a lot of people, that's a sentiment that a lot of people feel.
Hmm.
So, um, next question. These are so tiny. Um, in my opinion, people over 65 are more likely to have racist or other discriminatory
I
ideas.
strongly agree.
Yeah. So when I
Strongly
did
agree.
this one, I also said I strongly agree. So that's because I'm like an advocate for aging or people in the older adult population doesn't mean I'm like, oh, they're so much better than, like, they don't have these ideas. Like, they are actually, oh, they're all great people. No, not everyone's a great person. That's okay. I do think everyone deserves the right to health care. And
Mhm.
I believe those type of things, like, no matter their history, their past, that just comes from my empathetic background. But that is something that I feel like I struggle with, especially
Mhm.
because I'm from a very small conservative area, and I've had racist experience with older adults. And so that's one that I battle with. But I guess it's not necessarily all older adults. Like, when I came to Pittsburgh, of course, there's still an issue, but working at the JCC is literally the first time I've met a group in my life of older white adults who are Democrats.
Mm.
Like, I did not even know this population existed. I really appreciated how just how culturally competent they were about all communities, and how their life experience made them care about things that were like woke or very
Mhm.
liberal. And I appreciated that. I didn't really know that population existed. But yeah, I struggle with that idea. Why do you think you struggle with that
Well, it's
idea?
like you said, I've had a lot of experiences with older racist adults. So it's like, and then obviously it's like we see with like election cycles, the numbers skew red. And it's like, I'm not saying that, all Republicans are racist, but it does tend to skew that way.
That's what it feels like
It
for
does feel
us.
like that.
And that's, I mean, that's probably maybe like an unfair thing to say.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's just, we know what we live. So, and
Hmm.
that's the experiences that we've had.
I will say what I have found in my experience though
Hmm.
is that when there is a woke older person, that they're actually more woke than younger people.
Yeah.
Because if you really think about it, to be woke in the 70s was not
Where
popular.
it was challenged.
It was challenged. Now it's
Yeah.
the norm. Back
Yeah.
then, you were an outcast if you were woke. So if I
Yeah.
find an older person with woke views, they're usually much stronger than
Yeah, and
anybody around
like
my
us, we
age.
can speak a lot to, they lived it. They
Hmm.
can challenge every system. They see it for what it is, which is something I really appreciate, which is something that we are learning to do. I really think our generation we're not down for the BS. So
No.
we're kind of like that already. But I would say maybe like someone like my mom's generation, they it's just, I work and I live to work. And I feel like we're kind of changing that. We
Hmm.
work to live and to help others. And so I really appreciate that. But yeah, working with that population really taught me, like, oh, there are older white adults who care about the life of this a young Black person, which I appreciated.
Mm.
Um, I wouldn't mind being called old. Like, Ian, you're 20. You're getting so old.
Okay, so I don't mind. I would just be like, that's a little weird.
Like, maybe let's think about it. Like, if my aunt is like, oh my gosh, Ashawnti, you're turning, she always says this, like, you're 21. Like, I remember when you were a baby. Like, I feel like I'm getting so, but you're getting so old. I feel like I would be less offended if she said that, rather than my little cousin
Hmm.
who who's 7. If she's like, oh, Ashawnti, you're so old. Girl, who are you talking to? But
Please.
but I have to think to myself, now that I work in this space, I'm doing research in this area, why am I offended by that?
Hmm.
What does old mean? Why does old have such a negative connotation for us, even when we're young?
Hmm.
Like, why is that such a bad thing? I don't know.
See, I'm not offended. It's just let me tell you this. I was
Yeah,
on, like I said, I was on a cruise a couple weeks ago,
Ian's
and
my rich friend.
please, it was a whole like family reunion get together.
Beautiful.
Had a whole 48 of us, like all of us on the cruise, right?
Rich
And
family.
and
Okay.
we had there were a bunch of kids there. They were calling me uncle, and I felt old
It's just
because of
like
that. It's just like
yeah.
I'm 20 years old.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's like, I don't know. We don't want to. It brings us back to reality when I'm literally someone's aunt. I'm like, that's insane.
mm,
But it definitely grounds us when you have, younger kids going around calling you aunt, uncle old, but I mean, we're just in a place in our life. We're just getting older and it's okay.
Mm.
Like, it's fine. There's things when we were younger, we wanted to be this age so we can do certain things and go to college. And we're like, it's like such a quintessential, like fun time in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to not get offended when someone calls me like old. I don't think anyone has really done it out of ill intent,
Mm-hmm.
but
It's
who
always a
knows?
joke, you
Yeah,
know.
but like, are we comfortable with that joke? I don't know. I don't really see it as a bad thing, but I mean, hey, it's kind of sometimes it can be a little off, a little
Mm.
weird. Um, I really would like to get your opinion on this. So it says, in my opinion, the word senior is empowering. So me and you were talked about, you said elderly earlier.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say elderly. As someone who doesn't work in the aging space, but who is also like respectful of others, do you think there's like an issue with the word elderly?
So I think that the word elderly implies weakness. It implies that you're frail,
Yeah.
while the word senior is just like, oh, they are an older person.
Yeah,
You
they're
know, like
senior someone's age.
before you told me that in this space we refer to them as older adults, we refer to them as seniors.
Yeah.
I just said elderly out of my
You just
intuition. Maybe it's
generalize the
just the word I always hear.
Yeah,
But
there's nothing
really
wrong with
thinking
that.
about it, when I think of the word elderly, I think of someone who's weak, someone on their deathbed, someone who isn't in line with the times.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, senior, I'm much less, I guess, disposed to have this disgusting caricature in my head.
Yeah, it's definitely a character thing. And then yeah, I've met so many, like I attended a silver sneakers class, which is like an exercise class for older adults where they were literally like doing like dance exercise like Zumba with weights and with all these things, and they were blowing me out of the water.
Wow.
And when I really appreciated, this was at the JCC as well. What I really appreciated is that the instructor was an older adult herself. So I'm like, yeah, I was literally so impressed. We want to like basically stay away from those notions, those words that have kind of like a negative connotation. Another thing that I think that we do with older adults a lot is like infantilize them.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever seen like maybe like two older adults having dinner or something out together and we're like, oh, that's so cute. Aw,
They are cute,
how can
though.
I? We just appreciate them. I'm like, oh, that's goals. Let's say that they're goals. But or like I have to help them do everything.
Mm-hmm.
I have to, they're basically in a state of need all the time. That's how a lot of people view older adults. That gets on some people's nerves, or that makes us infantilize them, act like as if they're children. That's stripping of their identity. We don't want to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
something that I was taught when I was at the JCC serving lunch every day is don't over offer help, but don't try to help them if they don't need it. If like they're walking with their tray back to their table, don't, oh, let me get this for you, because sometimes it's less chivalrous as it is like
We
what
want
I
to
mean.
have autonomy.
Yeah, like everybody deserves the rights to their autonomy. That literally should never end until you're not here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think there are in some instances where it's a respect thing, but then I think there are some instances where there's too much. So, like if you're on the bus in the Port Authority, because this is one of my biggest pet peeves, and you see an older adult get on and you're sitting in the front seats or the handicapped seats, just be a good person.
Yep.
Now that one is just be a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are other things like that, but everybody has their own autonomy, and we don't want to take away from someone's identity as they're getting older. I'm gonna try to think of one more. There's one, but I don't know if it's appropriate because I don't know the vibes of the podcast. So I
Oh,
probably
go
should have
for it.
asked you before.
Go for
There's
it.
one that was like, it's hard for me to think about sex when I'm older, like when I'm an older adult.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I disagree.
I agreed with
I
that one.
look forward to not having to worry about school or work and just being able to spend time with
So
my wife.
when you're in your 60s, you don't mind thinking about it.
I do not mind at all.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a tough one. That one was very like the answers were like basically like all splayed out. I'm so bad at math. I can't even think of a simple statistics term, but like we were all spread out in those answers. Some people were like, yeah, some people were like, maybe. That was one where I was like, strongly disagree. Like, I don't know, it's because it's very taboo in like our country or something, but that's not something that like most Americans are like kind of open with. And then to think about being an older adult, I just don't even want to think about that aspect. But I think that's something that maybe a question I want everybody to ask themselves. I'm sorry, these questions, but I think that's a really good conversation starter. Like,
Definitely.
all of these act as conversation starters about aging and how we think about aging. I think to just do one more. I have found that older people focus more on the past than the present.
I'm neutral on that. I
Mm-hmm.
think it depends on the person, and the fact that it depends on the person really means that's not an age thing. It's just a
Yeah.
person thing. You know,
So then
I
that would
know
be.
a lot of nostalgic people our age where they're just like, "Oh my gosh, 2016." It's like,
I'm
and
crying, but if you think about it, that was 8 years ago. Like, that
yeah,
was a great summer for
it
everybody. But
was
you can feel nostalgic about anything. But yeah, I agree with you. That one, I don't know. It takes on like many meanings for me because I feel as though people get frustrated when older adults are like, "Oh my gosh, kids are always on their phone, and I was younger, I did this and whatever." But I mean, we do the same things to the kids who are under us
like these
today.
iPad kids.
Yeah,
What we on?
I mean, personally, I'm an iPad kid. So, but I mean, I don't know. So, I think a lot of older adults, which I've heard, and let's be honest, ageism goes both ways.
Mm,
It does, and it's okay. I was having an awesome discussion about ageism where I found some comments, kind of offensive, but I appreciate hearing everybody's viewpoint. So there are some older adults who think that young people lack creativity, that young people are not as social as they should be because social media has taken that
there's
place.
probably some truth to that.
You think so? Do you want
Yeah.
to discuss it at all?
I think part of the reason why that notion exists is just because we have a lack of third places nowadays.
Oh my God. I want you to talk about that. I was just thinking about that the other day.
I think about this like almost every
Because
day.
like my favorite like video essayist, I love watching video essays on YouTuber. His name is FD Signifier. He was
I
talking.
love FD
Shut up!
Signifier. I'm
I love his
literally watching his
videos.
stuff.
I watch all his stuff. He has some really good takes on.
I gotta get FD Signifier on
Oh,
this pod.
I would cry. I would have to sit on the outside of Alumni Hall waiting for him to
Please.
come out. But I love his videos. But yeah, if you want to talk about the third place thing.
So I feel like we were saying about young people being less social, I feel like social media tries to bridge the gap of the third place because we know our first place is where we sleep.
Yep.
Our second place is where we work or where we go to school, and then our third place is where we're supposed to congregate socially. And especially Pittsburgh has none.
Yeah.
The only things you can do in Pittsburgh are watch sports or drink. Nobody goes to libraries anymore.
Not for a purpose outside of school, which is your second place.
Not a purpose outside of school. All these third places are just disappearing, and we are meeting people online and we're not meeting each other face to face or organically anymore.
Our third place is literally inside of our phones, which is literally so true. There's no better way to connect. There's no better way presently to connect with other people. If you want to play a game, you can play a game. I read all the time. Like it's actually kind of upsetting to think about because I think as of right now, we feel like kind of exhausted. So when we're done with school and work, we just want to go home. But that's just because we're so used to finding peace in our technology.
I agree. And I mean, another part of it is just that work culture is reaching a climax. There's not much further we can really take this, you know, with the grind set, Sigma grind set, all that stuff.
It's just like I said, we're very much trying to live to work. Like we don't want our careers. I mean, we want our careers to matter to us, but we shouldn't really take them home. It's just not healthy for everyone, especially me who I'm seeing literally going into communities like my own or here in Pittsburgh that are void of the healthcare resources necessary to live a happy life. But I can drive from Oakland, go through Shadyside, nice population, go through East Liberty. It's hard to think about because it was gentrified.
Mhm.
There's thousands of people displaced from their own neighborhood. And then I go into Homewood, and Homewood is a community that the city has just basically refused to invest in. And you can literally see and that's the most interesting about Pittsburgh to me, because I thought it was going to be so different than where I come from. But Pittsburgh is like a case study. You can see the inequities with your own eyes. You can see the results of redlining. And I think about how that is affecting our older population. Pitt is built on a hill.
Mhm.
People do not know this. Pitt is built on a
Oh,
hill.
anybody goes here knows
Okay,
that.
yes. Like Pitt, I was upper campus girl for 2 years. I lived in Sutherland. I lived in
I
Panther.
know them calves screaming.
There was no freshman 15. There was a freshman minus 30. Okay. I
Like,
was dying my freshman year. But think about it. An older adult, they want to go to the emergency room. They don't have a car. This is an urban area. Urban areas are a tough place for people to age. It's just not as accessible for older adults who have any type of disabilities or physical limitations. They have to literally either they have to have the money to to ride the bus every day. They have to go or walk all the way up a hill. There's inclement weather here. It's literally snowing, like, or freezing, or all the time. It's The city is not very accessible, yet we see UPMC being built like all over the city, and it's still having problems connecting to its average citizen. So that's what a lot of my work I want to be present in health delivery and community health. But yeah, Pittsburgh is just such an interesting case study
you
for
know,
those that.
something multiple people have said about Pittsburgh. I know it's not like directly related to what you just said, but
Yeah,
a lot of people say Pittsburgh, or not a lot of people, but two people said this. And for two people to say this exact same
it's like
thing,
if
it's
I
a
had
little,
two nickels, it's kind of
a little
crazy.
Doofenshmirtz. But like they said, Pittsburgh is not a city, but it's a bunch of neighborhoods in a trench coat trying to be a city.
No, literally,
Like
like,
you can see massive differences between every single neighborhood in Pittsburgh. And then
yeah.
yeah, a lot of that is, history of redlining and gentrification and all
Yeah,
those
a lot of
things.
it's
So
devastating. Even
yeah.
the hill, like, and we live so close to the hill, and it's so interesting to think that a neighborhood like Oakland, that's like always flourishing, it literally coexists exactly directly next to a neighborhood where Pittsburgh destroyed.
Hmm.
So, and I think about the older adults and all those communities, even the older adults who are here who maybe they do drive. You can't park in Oakland. They're walking 10, 15 minutes to me multiple times a week to get their medication from the pharmacy and doing things like that. And I just, uh, Age Friendly has like a board of older adults who work together from different neighborhoods in the city. It's if you have the opportunity to just speak to an older adult just about their experience where they live, what has gotten difficult as they've gotten older, I would just really take the time to do it, basically. But yeah,
So let me flip a question at you.
okay,
So Pittsburgh is on a hill.
million.
How do we make Pittsburgh more accessible for older adults?
Oh, there is already work in that area that's pretty fleshed out, but it doesn't reach enough people. So transportation is one of the biggest ones. It's just something that the city does plan to address further in these upcoming years. But there are services that for some reason I can only think of Go Granny. And then, oh my gosh, my I'm going to say the person who put the program coordinator for Age Friendly, Cassandra Master. She's amazing. She used to work for, I think it's Access. They basically go and pick up older adults like
Mm.
on a schedule to make sure they can get to their healthcare places. But those programs have just got to get larger, and they have to reach further. And then we have to think about how can we let how can the average person in a community figure out about that? Maybe they're not technologically literate. Everybody puts everything online, which is like completely unfair because not everyone, they don't
Grew
even have
up
to
in
be
the
an
online
older,
era.
yeah, they don't even have to be older adults. Not everybody understands technology.
Mhm.
I think that's where you want to start engaging with your community leaders, or trying to have spaces for older adults in communities. Like the JCC is wonderful, and there's also Vintage, which is in East Liberty, and then they have another Age Well in the South Hills. I want to see that everywhere, just so this type of information can reach older adults, and they also deserve the camaraderie that they aren't getting, because aging is very isolating. So yeah, but Pittsburgh, it's so, I mean, I struggle with transportation. So, but
Mm.
I really think we really have to start investing in cost-free ways, especially as the city's getting older. We have to invest properly into them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you say cost free, because it's like I said earlier, everyone ages. It's not
Yeah.
something you choose to do. It's not
Right.
something that you can control. So why should people be at a disadvantage for something completely natural that everyone goes through?
Yeah. I mean, I ask myself that question all the time.
I mean, at the same time though, I do realize that I do have some of my own I had my own preconceptions going into
Yeah.
this. Like, for example, whenever I see an older person driving, I absolutely hate it, because either they're going slow, they're going fast, they're
Yeah.
disregarding street signs. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I feel as though if you're over the age of 65, that you should be retested for your driver's license like every
65 is
every five
so young,
years or
Ian.
anything. I understand that, but like I see a lot
No, this
of
is really good. I don't think there's anything wrong with what you said. It's just how you feel and what you have experienced.
mhm.
Nobody can take away your
Like I was saying,
experiences.
this was my idea before coming into this
Yeah.
pod.
The only car accident or major car accident I've ever been was a 3-car pileup that was caused by an older adult going across the intersection, that their light was red and the cars are going this way. So the car smashed into them, and then they both smashed into my car.
Mm.
So that's the only, and it was, the woman was, I think she was like 90. Like she was in her late 80s. License has been expired for years. I think what is tough about that, because I got to sit in on a really nice class. It was like a current event class. It was called Coffee Combos at the JCC, and they talked about transportation, but when you're ready to give up driving.
Because
That
driving
is,
is from such a young age, it's like a
yeah.
marker of freedom,
Yeah,
you know?
no, literally. It's like it's your first instance of freedom. That's what it feels like. You can go where you want when you want, and as you get older, it's just a liberty that people enjoy. If you can drive somewhere, it's easier. So, they talked about when to give up driving. There was this really nice couple that just moved to Pittsburgh who had just recently given up driving, and it was their first time taking public transit. They felt really good because Squirrel Hill, there's like a bus stop
Oh
every
yeah, no,
5 minutes.
Squirrel's nice in terms of
But
public
we have to think
transit.
about places that aren't Squirrel Hill, that are more spread out. But I think those people, or people from my community, my grandfather got into a really bad accident, like when in his late 60s, that totaled his car. And in retrospect, he probably shouldn't have been driving then. But we have to have those conversations. That also comes with, like, personally, because like we said, um, ageism is how we feel about ourselves. We have to let it go. It's not going to completely take away our identity. There's just going to be a shift. Some people aren't necessarily open to change, but it's if it's in like the better interest of others, you have to be. So if we start ingraining this narrative now that aging is not bad, the changes that my body, my mind is going to experience because of aging is not bad, then maybe more people will be likely to give up, driving or doing things or their careers more gracefully,
Hmm.
and they don't feel forced out of it.
So
So
hold up, it literally just left my brain. I was trying to find the words to wrap this up,
it's okay.
but okay. Is there anything else from your work or your research that you want to get across to the people watching and listening?
Embrace your age. definitely look up the age inventory scale. I feel like it's such a great tool for self reflection. I think that's like a wonderful thing. And then I think you can apply aging to any of your work, especially if anybody is in the STEM area, or they want to be a clinician, or they want to engage in research. I would just see like what aspects aging plays into it, especially like people who are working in nursing. I want everyone to be definitely more empathetic to people who are aging, and notice that they are human beings as well. So I feel like that's the biggest takeaways. I would just say I just want them to think about it. It's not something that we're necessarily conscious about. It's kind of something that we fear, something that kind of feels inevitable. So it's like, it's going to happen, but it's something that we should definitely be embracing. So
I mean, it's like you were saying, sort of the story of your life, empathy. Just have more empathy towards
yeah,
everybody.
yeah, yeah.
So in the description of this episode, I will be having your LinkedIn.
Okay, please add me on LinkedIn.
Is there anything else that you would want me to put in the description for our watchers and listeners? Anything from your organization, you specifically?
Oh yeah. I'm definitely I'll put some of the age friendly resources on it. I'll try to get a link to the age friendly inventory. Yeah, nothing personal. I don't do anything like big on social media or anything like that. But yeah, I'll send everything to you that I need to send to you.
Yeah, this was an excellent
It was
conversation. Like
cool.
what you're doing, starting conversations around ageism. I feel as though I learned a lot personally just from this. I can't imagine what the people watching or listening to this are going to be taking from this, but you're doing good work. It's very
Yeah,
appreciated.
cool. My bestie from Freshie.
Bestie from Freshie.
Um,
Anyways, this is Ian Gahende signing off. Have a great week, everybody. Peace out.
Bye.